everybody, this is Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. I am working away on the list of suggestions of small little things to make until I can wrap my head around something larger. If you watched the last video or the last few videos, Jen came, Jen and I Zoomed, my friend Jen, trying to figure out 2020. That's been a bit of a bust for us personally. But 2021, hopefully we have a little challenge going if you want to refer back to the Hoffman challenge. Probably a lot of you won't be doing that because it is a challenge, but you can refer back to the previous video. I am chipping away at my little list again, as I said, and this little tutorial I have is I have made a placemat. I have made a placemat, and actually I'm going to be doing a set of these placemats, okay? Very, very simple. Now, you might see this, you think, oh, borders and side borders and binding. There's none. There's no borders, there's no binding on this little magic placemat here. It's just a front and a back. And the way I do it, the borders and the edging, it becomes one when you turn the back over and top stitch it. But I show you how to do that. Now, I have made this little placemat here with a little pocket for my napkin, and then a little front pocket for the cutlery. If you can see that there, the knife, fork, and spoon would go in this second little pocket there. I've trimmed up my placemat with a bit of lace. This is more formal looking, the lace, and I explained to you, you could put any kind of trim on. You don't have to put the pockets on, you don't have to put the lace on. You could just make this placemat, and it takes about, this would take, well, it's about 18 inches, say half a yard to make one, maybe a little bit more than half a yard to make one of these placemats. Maybe 3/4 of a yard to make one. The front and the back, I'm saying. And then about a yard and a bit of trim if you needed it. As you can see, I trimmed up this one. Now, I explained to you that this is not a quilted placemat. This is not a quilted placemat. Most placemats are. And I explained that when you make a placemat, you want to pre-wash your fabric and pre-shrink your fabric, obviously. And then you probably, if you're going to be having a daily placemat, one that's on the table all the time that gets filthy dirty and throwing in the wash, you'll want to quilt that placemat to keep it all together. This placemat is more formal, and I would probably use this more for a formal occasion or for more special, and then just spot clean it. Or if I do, very, very gently hand wash it. I didn't quilt it, although it is interfaced with like a fusible fleece. The reason I say about quilting is sometimes, to my mind, and pardon me if you disagree, but sometimes quilting something, to me, is making it slightly cuter, which is awesome, which is fantastic. I love it. Like something small. Sometimes a tote bag, if it's quilted, looks a little less formal and a little bit more casual, which is maybe the look we want. I've quilted a million things, smaller things. But when I think of something a little bit more formal, you have just something sort of not quilted. And actually, if you look in your home goods stores, you'll notice that. You'll notice that the more utilitarian placemats will be quilted and thrown in the wash, and the more formal ones are just a placemat. And that's what I have made here. I'll be making a set of these. Again, I show you how you don't have to put the trim on, the lace. I had gotten this lace. Lace is expensive. I had gotten this lace from an old curtain. I'll show you how I cut it up because trims are expensive. So reduce, reuse, recycle. Thrift stores, look outside of what you're looking at and look at different trims, zippers, buttons, and reuse them. So that is my little tutorial. I have my little napkin holder. Somebody did ask for a placemat. This measures the standard size. What I've given my measurements, the standard size for about a 14-inch by 19-inch placemat. By all means, you could make them smaller. The construction method as I show you. Again, it's just the backing, the borders, and the finishing edges are all done in one. There is no binding. I couldn't curve my corners because this is a placemat anyway. But the way I've constructed it, is so very, very simple. I hope you enjoy this. And as I was making this, I thought, you could probably do a quilt this way. You just make the backing bigger, and it creates its own borders, and then you turn the sides in. And yeah, I was thinking that when I was doing it. I've never done that in a large thing, but I have made my placemats. I've made a lot of these as presents, and I've sold them in my shop. Sets of them. So again, you can embellish them however you wish. Wonderful now for holiday fabrics, for your holiday tables, for a special occasion. So make some pretty placemats. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. And again, thanks folks for following along with me. And yeah, stick with me, and one of these days we'll get to something. Jen will be here. Things will be somewhat back to normal, hopefully. And yeah. Here's to 2021. All right, thanks again, folks, and keep safe, please. See ya. Bye. To make my placemats, what I have here is this placemat makes up about 19 inches by 14 inches, a standard size, nice size placemat. So for my inner fabric, the main part of my placemat, I am cutting out of the inner facing batting, which is this fusible batting here, which is this product, the Heat and Bond fusible interfacing and fusible fleece. It has a nubbly side, so that's the glue side. I'm cutting one of those pieces and one of my fabric here for one placemat, and I'm cutting each piece 11.5 inches by 16 inches. That's this product and the fabric. For my backing and the outside borders, I'm cutting one piece of a contrasting fabric, 16.5 inches by 21 inches. This will make my backing and my borders on top, bottom, and sides. Then for my little folded pocket with the napkin tucked in and my cutlery tucked in, I'm cutting two pieces of fabric, my contrasting, which will be on top, 6.5 inches by 11 inches. There's two of them. Now, hopefully you will have seen in the beginning, I'm going to be embellishing my placemat to make just make this a very special set of placemats. If it's just for two people or for a special meal. I'm using a wider, about an inch wide lace. Now, I have to tell you, lace when you go to the stores is very expensive. So what I am always on the lookout for at Goodwill or thrift stores is old curtaining. And this was a bit of old curtaining with a bit of ruffles. And the rest of the curtain is gray and a bit threadbare, but I always look for the trim. And I found about 3 sets of curtains, this eyelet cotton curtain, and it had this lovely bottom trim on it, this lace on it here. Sort of like a broderie anglaise, like almost an eyelet. I'm not using the whole. I will save that little bit of floral for something else, but I'm just using, as you can see, I'm just cutting off about an inch and a quarter of this beautiful trim. So when I put it on my placemat, it just adds a little bit of a pop. By all means, I have about 1.5 yards of that for this project. By all means, you can use, if this is more of a formal look, my damask and my polka dots with my lace, but by all means, if this would make up beautifully in a holiday fabric. The holiday season's coming up. You could happy it up with like a bobble trim on it if you wanted to make the trim. If you didn't even want to put the lace on it or your trim on it, you can just follow it. This is very, very simple to make with my pocket for the cutlery and the napkin. And then I'll show you how I make the borders and the backing for this. So after I've cut out my pieces, my next step was to have fused my fusible fleece onto the main part, the main body of my placemat here. Now, I will have addressed this in the beginning. By all means, this could be a quilted placemat, which if you're going to be washing them, if they're an everyday placemat, would be the thing to do. You would want to quilt this, perhaps just in lines. You could free motion quilt it. You could do a diagonal quilting. Now, I've chosen to just leave this fusible fleece as the backing of my pretty fabric, and I'm not going to quilt it because I want these couple placemats to be a little bit more formal looking. And sometimes when you quilt something, it gets slightly cutesy, which is a beautiful look. But for something a little bit more formal to my eye, I just want this formal looking damask to be nice and just a nice solid bit. And I probably would be taking care with a more formal placemat and maybe just spot cleaning it as opposed to throwing it in the washing machine, because I am putting a pretty lace trim. Again, if your trims, you want to make sure everything is pre-washed and everything is pre-shrunk, and then quilting it, and you have no problem throwing your placemats in the washing machine. For now, I'm not going to be quilting this. I'll put that aside for now. And my next part is, I'm going to be making my pockets, okay? We've cut our two 6.5 inch by 11. I've already done one here. What we're going to do is you're just going to fold over the long parts together, the pretty sides together. It's going to be making a fold on one side, and the raw seams are there. What you're going to do on both pocket pieces, you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch away from the top of the edge there. And then what we're going to do from fold to edge, and then you're just going to put your thumb in there. We're going to turn that inside out like that. And then we're going to sort of finger press it so that when it comes to getting a nice crisp edge up the top there, I'm going to poke that out. I can just go over and iron that. It has raw edges and a nice finished edge here. Okay, I'm going to go do that on this one. Turn both of them inside out. This is facing me, and as you can see, I have made my two pockets with the raw edges here and the finished edge up there. Now this pocket, I'm going to be stitching on to the bottom. This is my bottom right hand corner of my placemat. I'm just going to stitch that on a 1/4 inch over here, around there, and then I'm just going to come up and I'm going to stitch it fairly close, about a 1/16 of an inch or so away from this edge over here. Okay, just to secure it. This is going to be our pocket for our napkin. But we're going to also be putting a pocket on for our cutlery to fit in. So let me just demonstrate this. Here's my cutlery that's going to go into my little pocket here. Okay, now I'm going to be securing my pocket on here, but I wanted to just embellish this just slightly. So I'll take out my cutlery. And I have a little bit of my lace here, so put that aside for this moment now. But when I'm going to be, I have this like 1.5 inch lace here, okay? And it has a raw edge. What I want to do is, again, I just sort of visualize it. I come in about an inch or so, because this is going to be in the seam. I just want to embellish this. Now we're going to be folding our pocket edge down a bit, okay? We're going to be folding this down. And at this point, I just want a little bit of this pretty white edging to show, okay? So what I'm going to do is, you might have to like sort of maybe just mess about with it a little bit on whatever your trim is, if it's a bobble trim or if it's a rickrack or something. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold that down, and then let me just see if I can, I'm just going to cut that a little bit because I have to turn it under like this, and I'm going to pin this in. I'm going to pin that down, make a nice square pocket. All I'm doing here, folks, is embellishing this pocket here, this outside pocket. I can go sew this down because it's going to be secured only on the two long sides here and then a little bit up here. So I'm just going to put this little bit of trim on my pocket, and then when I go to sew it, it will be right at the end, right at the edge. And I think then what I'm going to do, I could cut this down probably, but I'm going to just slot this right in. I'm just going to sort of mess around with it here. And as I said, the way you're going to be doing your trim, you're not going to have the exact same trim as I think I'll just cut that bit off there so I can see my fabrics, my black and white fabric behind my trim. So again, your trim's going to be a little bit different. You're going to be folding it and just attaching it to your pocket edge. I'll square this up really nice, and then I'll secure that when it's nice and square, and then I'll secure my pockets on. This is my pocket that I have for my napkin here, okay? It's going to be a double layered pocket. Here's my pocket for my napkin. This is my raw edges, and then I've stitched up there nicely. You will see this here. I've made my lovely little pocket. I've sewn this down. This is sort of like the extra, the outer pocket, and then I've just trimmed that up however you want to trim it, if you want to or not. But you want to stitch this flap down. It looks like it's folded over, but I have actually stitched that down. And then I'm going to be putting that raw edge here and raw edge there on top of that corner right there. And there we have our napkin holder and then our cutlery holder. Okay, this is where our cutlery is going to go, in this pocket here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch. I'm going to take my pocket over and I'm going to stitch. Again, 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch here, and then I'm going to stitch up here. I'm going to reinforce this quite a bit here on the bottom and on up here especially, because there will be a little bit of pull when you put your cutlery in on this area here and over here, up here. So just reinforce it there, back stitch, and then on the bottom. So I'm going to go do that now. And this is the only bit that will actually pretty much show. Now my pockets are attached, and this is how it turns out to be. I've attached it nice and strong there, and coming up here, and attached it nice because there's my pocket. My pocket that's not in there, that's the pocket for my napkin. So you pull your napkin out and you still have your cutlery. Once your napkin and your cutlery are out, you have this whole area for your plate. Now in the beginning I showed you that I had cut down this bit of trim. Now what I've seen when I was doing my trim on my pocket, it just sort of evolved. I quite like just the fact that my holy bit of my trim is showing. I had it about, I just cut it away. I had it about that size, about 1.5 inches or so, or 2 inches or so. I didn't like that. So because I'm going to be cutting, I'm going to be using the full length of, I guess it's 1 yard and a bit or whatever. I got 1.5 yards here. Well, I got more, but you probably want about 1.5 yards. You're going to cut off a little bit for that bit. But I've cut this down to about 1 inch for myself, my trim. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it on 3 sides, okay? Now, when I get to the corners here, I'm just going to sort of, I don't know if I'm going to like miter it or just sort of, yeah, just do that. Just sort of make a bit of a miter, and then I can sort of maybe just cut off that extra bit. Because I just want, what I'm doing here is I just want the holy bit of my trim showing, if you can see that. I'm going to be doing it so that the trim is facing towards my inside of my placemat. Be careful that you're not attaching your trim like that. I want it onto the inside of my placemat, and then our border is going to go around. So this bit here is going to be real pretty where our plate's going to go, and then we're going to border it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my whole bit over, and I'm going to attach about 1/4 inch seam, and then I'm just going to sort of turn it in and make sort of a miter, like all that angle there, and then I'm just going to finish attaching it along each side and over to that end. This is going to be the raw edges to the raw edges of the inside of my placemat. I'm attaching my lace trim to the inside of my placemat here. You might think this is a little bit busy, but this is going to be bordered with my black and white dot to calm it down a little bit. And again, I'm looking for a fairly formal look. So what I've done is I've attached it raw edges to raw edges. I've just sort of folded it back on itself. Your trim will be different, obviously. Whatever your trim is, I'm coming to the corner, and all I'm doing is trying to, like, it's straight on, but I'm just making that, angle, whatever angle, what is that angle, 45 degrees, I don't know, whatever it is. So I'm just going to sort of make that angle, put that like that, straighten it up, and then I'm just going to tuck that in, that angle there of my trim. That looks nice. I'm going to come to the end. It's not perfect, but it's fine. I'm going to come to the end, put my needle down about 1/4 inch away, turn my placemat around, and then I'm just going to finish up. Now I made sure that my trim is all facing upwards, because if you do that angle, sometimes you can turn it and it's going upside down, and sometimes the trim has a right and a wrong side, and I know that these flowers, that's the wrong side and this is the right side. Again, just 1/4 inch. Again, this is a pretty sort of fussy little placemat. By all means, you can make these plainer and right off. And again, I'm not going to be doing this side of my placemat because there's enough interest over here with the napkin. Now I'm just going to see these corners. Yeah, I'm just going to take a few stitches just to secure those corners. Just a few stitches in that lace. Just to hold that down. And then on this corner here. Yeah, just whatever. Just going into that corner. There you go. Just so it doesn't flop around. Like that. Okay? So this is what we end up with. Lovely, pretty trimmed up placemat. Now what we are going to do is we are going to go over and now I'm going to attach my backing, and in the same time I'm going to be doing my borders. If any of you saw how I made my leaf mug rug, you know that I can make my backing and my borders sort of at the same time. With a fiddly little thing like this, a little square, instead of say right sides together and turning it inside out, which is a wonderful way to do it, I can actually make borders the way I've done this. But you're not making borders, you're just making a larger backing. So what I'm doing with to move that aside, what I'm doing with my backing fabric here is I'm going to have it the long side up, or no, is it the long side up? Let me see. No, that's right. I'm going to have it the width side, the wide side, okay? This measures 16.5 by 21. So my 21 inches is over here. I'm going to, with the pretty sides together, I'm going to mark, or I'm going to pin the top edge here, and I'm going to, or clip it, where's my pins? I'm going to make sure that I have the exact size of my border over here. And that is 2.5 inches on that side. And just pull it over slightly. And 2.5 inches, just center that. So you have it's a little less than 2.5 on each side there at the top, okay? Just like that. You have the exact same size over here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this. You can pin it or clip it. And again, your pretty trim is facing down. You don't want that to be flipped up. I'm going to pin this all the way along, or clip it all the way along. Now everybody's using the clips, the Wonder Clips, which are wonderful. Just the raw edges to the raw edges. I'm going to go over to my machine, and I'm going to sew that, being careful, keep it nice and flat. I'm going to sew that just about 1/4 inch seam, making sure that my stitching for my lace is not showing. Maybe just a hair bigger than 1/4 inch, right along. Just stitching it right along, okay? I'm going to go do that. And then what I'm going to do is when I finished stitching there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down this edge. I'm going to bring down my bottom edge of my placemat, and I'm going to bring it down like that. I'm going to fold it down like that, okay? And again, very important that you measure the exact measurement that you have up at the top. It's a little bit less than 2 1/4. Because we want this exactly the size, a little bit less, a little bit less than 2.5, a little bit more than 2 1/4. We want this the exact size on each side. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm putting my pins in the wrong way, but that's okay. When I get to my machine, I'm going to just pin this edge here. Okay? We are creating the top and the bottom border. It's amazing. We're just turning it inside out and you're going to see the top and the bottom border made. It's really a quick and easy cheat. So as you can see there, I've attached the bottom here. I have the exact size over here and over here. And I have the exact, the 1/4 inch up here, the exact size over here. So I have stitched the top and the bottom here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it inside out. Turn my little placemat inside out. It's nice and stiff. Again, if you've quilted it, it will be lovely quilted. There, as you can see, is my bordered placemat. And now what you're going to do now, I must say, this does not have batting in it. It does not have interfacing in it. I'm fine with that because it's going to lay nice. This is where your plate's going to be, and this is going to just lay really nice. I am going to top stitch it, but right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess with it and make sure that when I go to iron this right now, it's exactly the same size. Now we've sewn it and we've cut it, so you are going to have about an inch border, as it were, at the top and an inch border down at the bottom, and you're going to want to iron that really well. Okay, you're going to want to iron that really well. So what we've done is we've had the borders and we've already put the backing on. Okay, unbelievable, right? And then after I do that, I'm going to turn it around, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this in 1/4 inch, and then we're going to turn it over, top stitch it, and we have our side borders. But for now, I'm going to go over and I'm going to press this really well. I'm going to press that down really well. And then what I am going to do is I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to stitch right in that ditch, just to secure that this part to my border up here. I've come back over to my machine, and I'm just going to clip that little bit off. you're not going to see my stitching. I'm going to stitch more on my trim here. I'm going to try to just get right in the ditch there, because I probably will come back and do a top stitch about 1/4 inch away. I may or may not. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, as you can see here, I'm punching through my pockets now. It's just a few layers of fabric. Just go slowly. I'm just stitching right in that ditch, right where the seam, my lace, and my bottom border matches, meets up, just to secure my backing. And then right off, right there. So again, I have made on the back, I have secured my backing to my thing. Now what I'm going to do is, I'll probably do it right now. Now I'll go over to my ironing board. What I will do, I'll leave my camera up, but I'm going to iron this. I'm going to iron this edge here 1/4 inch in, like that. Okay. Now when you go to fold something, sometimes this edge can be bigger. So I'm just sort of going to push that in a little bit, fold it in, and then I'm going to attach. I'm going to sew. What I'm wanting you to do is I want you to make this edge the exact same as this edge here. Sometimes it can be a bit bigger, so you might just have to mess about with that a little bit. But you're wanting to go over and iron this down. Do it first exactly like that. You're going to go iron this down 1/4 inch all the way along that edge, and then we're going to turn this over when it's nice and ironed down, and we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that edge there. We're going to do a nice decorative top stitch along this edge, and then we have our side borders. You see that? We want to cover that up, that stitching where we attached our lace. So just make sure when you fold this up, when I get to that point, that this little bit here, this little straggly bit, is nice and tucked under. I can clip this, and then I can sew it right along that edge, and we have a beautiful edge. We have a beautiful no raw edges, and we've made our side borders. I've stitched my side border down on that one side with my pockets. I punched through that seam right there, and then I'm coming to over here. And again, what I've done is I've turned this edge around. I've turned this in 1/4 of an inch, and then I've turned it just so it covers that seam, that stitching that I put my lace on. And this is nice, and what I'm saying is sometimes the fabric, if you don't have a walking foot, tends to shift a little bit, but mine didn't because I've clipped it. I'm just stitching close to the edge. I've back stitched at the top. Not gone fast. I've secured it with my clips, as you can see, and I'm just stitching that right close to my edge there. My hands are in the way, excuse me. My 1/4 inch is nice and tucked around, neat. Take my clips off here. And I'm coming to the edge here, holding it. I'm just going to back stitch there, just a few, just a little, because this is showing this stitching. And there, take my clips out. My placemat is finished except for some top stitching. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to top stitch, starting at the top. I'm going to go top stitch this around on the outer edge about 1/4 of an inch, just to finish the off. I'm going to start in about 1/4 of an inch, not all the way to the end. This will hold this down. As I said, my borders, as it were, do not have batting in, so it's just the 2 pieces of fabric. But this holds them together nicely. And after you press it and starch it, they stay really nice. So I'm just going to go to about 1/4 of an inch, needle down, turn it over. Needle down. And come to my end there, back stitch, and then pull my threads out. And there, my placemat is finished. Pretty, pretty, pretty. Give it a nice press. Pretty. I have a place for my napkin, and I have a place for my cutlery. Here is my finished placemat. As you can see, I have a black and white plate. I've done my black and white. I have black and white buffalo check in my little nook there. I'm going to make a couple of these. Again, I did not quilt them, but this is more of a little formal look. It's more straight. You do not have to put on any kind of embellishment if you don't want. If you just want to do the one pocket for the cutlery, you don't, and put your napkin on here, that's fine. But this is a quick and easy way to get away with backing, borders, and binding. It's all in one. No binding. Look at that, squared off corners. You know me and my curved corners. But obviously I like the placemat to have, I like my placemat to have squared corners. So this is a nice, decent sized placemat for your plate. You can make them smaller, you can make them larger. And yeah, they don't take long at all. To make. And again, if you wanted to quilt that, you can. I quite like it. It's more of a formal look for me, this little placemat. So I do hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You can whip up a bunch of them for your holiday table. If you had plain china, and you can go to town with holiday fabrics if you wanted to, or match your china to your placemat. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, folks. It was fun. Thanks a lot. All right, see ya. Bye.